Welcome to Blue is the New White, the #1 podcast for building blue-collar business.
We know that for our industry to grow, our businesses have to grow. In order for our businesses to grow, our people have to.
Here, we talk to experts in any field with actionable insight that you can use to develop yourself, your team, or your blue-collar company right now.
Fortune favors action. It's just as simple as actually taking that step forward.
Whether you're a seasoned pro or just getting started, join us to discover the blueprint for what it takes to stand out in the world of business. Now, blue-collar CEO and business coach, author, speaker, and your host, Josh Zolin.
And you guys know how I'm going to end it, right? Say it with me. Let's go to work on 3. 1, 2, 3. Let's go to work!
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Blue is the New White podcast. Today, we sit down with the Executive Director of Explore the Trades, Kate Cinnamo. Explore the Trades is a nonprofit organization focused on bridging the technical talent gap and acting as a conduit between education and industry. Topics discussed today include how they drive awareness of the skilled trades to the next generation, how businesses can use Explore the Trades as a resource for recruitment, how businesses benefit from hiring the next generation, and what we need to do as blue-collar business owners in order to attract tomorrow's workforce. Tune in to hear this and more. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and on our website at blueisthenewwhite.com to receive all the latest updates. You can now find this podcast on iHeartRadio, SiriusXM, and Pandora. As always, we rely on the word of mouth from our listeners to further the mission. So, if you enjoy this episode, please take a second to rate it, review it, and share it. Tomorrow's blue-collar leaders depend on it. They depend on you. Also, if you're looking to grow your blue-collar business and make every employee your best employee, be sure to check out the brand new Blue is the New White Academy at bitnew.academy. That's bitnw.academy. Thank you again and enjoy this episode of Blue is the New White with Kate Cinnamo. I've got an awesome guest today. I can't wait to talk to her all about what she does. Explore the Trades. You might have heard of it. You might not have, but that's why she's on the show today, so you can learn. Without further ado, Kate, welcome to the show.
Hey, Josh, thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited about this conversation, if I'm being honest. So speaking to those who don't already know Explore the Trades or who you are, would you mind kind of giving us an idea of, just who is Kate and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, great. So just a quick snapshot. Explore the Trades is a nonprofit organization dedicated to bridging the technical talent gap to the service trades of plumbing, heating, cooling, and electric. And I started in this role with the organization in April of 2017. So I have been here for a while, and my journey up to this point had nothing to do with the trades. So I found myself, I feel like this journey sort of emulates a lot of people. You all of a sudden you wake up and you're in the trades, and here we are. And my background prior to this was as a college admissions counselor way back in the day, and then a longer stint in senior healthcare and skilled housing. So that is how I got here, Josh.
Well, okay.
None of it's connected.
I've got questions.
I bet.
Okay, so holy cow. All right. So my first question is, were you exposed at all to the trades when you were younger? Did you know what they were? Were you, was it around you? Did you have family in the trades? What was your perception of that when you were younger?
Oh, that's a great question. So I grew up in rural North Iowa. So a farming community, had been around agriculture my entire life. And I would say that because you're in it and around it, you get a sense of the skills needed in that industry. I would say beyond that, it was in high school when you start talking about your plans after high school graduation. And it was the message that, you can go to college, you can go to military, maybe tech school, but I think that's probably a longer conversation in a few minutes, but that was sort of the extent, right? That's what I knew.
Okay. All right. So did you go to college right after high school?
I did.
Cool. What did you study?
I had majors in business management and communications.
Oh, right on. So then what led you to the senior living position? How'd you get there?
Yeah. So after college, had moved up to the Twin Cities and had found myself in the nonprofit world. So my role within senior healthcare was related to community relations, volunteer management, marketing. So it was a lot of the, behind the scenes for those organizations.
Okay. Yeah. Right on. So then how did you go from that to being a college admissions counselor?
Yeah. So being a college admissions counselor, that was my first job after I graduated from college. So I was actually working at my alma mater. Yep. And, hindsight now that I'm 20 plus years removed from that role, you kind of think, okay, well, my first job was an admissions counselor to get people into college to take on student debt. And now I'm sort of the flip side of the conversation with experience and, understanding the world as it is. And now I'm saying, well, college is fine, but it's not the only option. And here's why you should consider not going to college. So both sides of the coin is where I've been.
Right. The right education for the right individual, right?
That's right.
No,
absolutely.
that's awesome. And that's why I'm really excited about this conversation now, knowing that you are a college admissions counselor and knowing what you do today. I think that's a really good dichotomy that we can kind of play around. So then what led you to explore the trades? You said you've been here since 2017, quite a long stint there now. And so what led you to that path? Why this skill trades?
I really enjoyed the experience and the work that I did in senior housing, because I do think that's an extremely important part of society. Yeah. But had felt that, I was ready to take on more. And I found this role with Explore the Trades, and not knowing anything about the industry, really what the industry was all about, it was intriguing. And so I applied, and here we are. So
what was your first
8 years later?
What was your first role at Explore the Trades?
It was as executive director.
Oh, it was. So you've been executive director since 2017. Wow.
Yes.
All right, cool.
Yep.
You must be doing a good job.
Well, fingers crossed, knock on wood.
No, that's fantastic. All right, cool. So let's get into, I appreciate you sharing that story and that journey with us. Thank you. So let's get into a little bit about Explore the Trades and what it does, and what the mission is. Can you kind of high level all of that for us before we kind of get into the nitty gritty? Let's understand a little more about why Explore the Trades exists.
Yeah, for sure. So, earlier when I mentioned that our mission is to bridge that technical talent gap, a lot of the programs and resources that we deliver are targeted to that K through 12 audience, prior to high school graduation. We kind of call it pre-12. So what we want to do is not only expose students and their parents and their educators to the realm of the skilled trades, because we know that there's an information gap. We know that since the late 90s, early 2000s, shop class has disappeared from a lot of schools. And so we've taken on the role of informing people and providing information about these trades so that they're aware of what they are, because that's our job. As an industry, we need to make sure that this audience is aware. So by the time they graduate high school, we want to say whether or not you feel as though the trades are the right fit for you, you know what they are, you know why they're important, and you know why we rely so heavily on them for our day-to-day lives. And so we want to be the conduit between education and industry so that people are informed prior to graduation. And then on the other side, a lot of the resources we have, contractors also use in their recruiting. So we get to play in both sandboxes related to the messaging.
Yeah. And I think that's important too, that bridge or that conduit. I really like what you said, excuse me, conduit between education and industry. That's the first time I've heard that term, and I really like it. No, that's really great. And for the last 5 years, that's what we've talked about on this podcast, right? It takes awareness, one of the things I like to say is, and I heard it somewhere, I can't take credit for it, right? But I heard that the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference, right? And through standard education, at least in my experience and a lot of the people I've spoken to, it's not that people hate the skilled trades. It's not that people love the skilled trades. They're just indifferent to it. It's not something that's spoken about. It's not something that's really applauded. It's not something that awareness is driven into. It's all college. It's all what you can do. Book smarts, grades, that kind of stuff. Not what can you do with your hands.
Right.
And so, I think that's an important perspective. So I love that. I think that's great. What type of things are you doing in the schools and with the students to drive this awareness?
Yeah, for sure. That's a great question. So the first thing that I'd like to mention, this is a programmatic tool that we've had with us for over 2 years. And for anyone who goes to our website, which is explorethetrades.org, a couple years ago, we made infographics that highlight high level a career path in plumbing, HVAC, electrical, and now we have one for customer service, so call center and dispatch, because we know that those roles are so integral to the business. And what we wanted to do is, in a nutshell, how can we communicate the growth and the leadership opportunities that exist so that it gets rid of the perception that, once you're a plumber, that's all you do. You carry your tools and that's all you do, which we all know listening that's a great job. That is a great career. However, there's also more to that. So if you want to be in service management, if you want to be in operations, we know that there's a path there. So those infographics that we have made have been a great communication piece to the schools. So as a nonprofit, all of the support that we get, we want to put back out into the world. And we've created posters that are free for schools to request. So at this point, we've sent out over 2,000. We know that on average, about 240 students per school are looking at these. So we've hit over 400,000 students in this process. So it's been a great tool for the career counselors to speak to the tech ed teachers, for them to speak to. And what a great way to say, if I start as an apprentice, look at this journey that's ahead of me. So these posters have been extremely valuable in communicating all of these messages all at once. And so again, because of donor support, we're able to fill that knowledge gap in the school system.
Wow, that's incredible. That's it. I just want to say thanks on behalf of everybody in the skilled trades for what you do, because it's really important, and people need to understand how important it is. We talk about the skills gap. We talk about, how many people are retiring from these industries compared to how many people are entering into these industries. Oh. And, we've just recently started to talk about the economic impact that it has, that people have no idea. I mean, they just don't, the dots aren't connecting for whatever reason. If we don't have people in these industries, what is it going to do to consumer services, home services and all of this stuff? I mean, safety even, there's a lot of different discussion around it. So that being said, let's kind of flip it a little bit. How do you connect it to, or how do you serve the business side?
Yeah, it's the same thing. So we know that when companies reach out to us, they can request the same posters, which is great. And we know that they are using those at, recruiting events. They're taking them to home and garden shows to showcase, customers who are coming up. Obviously they're recruiting. So let's take a look at what this career looks like. And we also have the opportunity to speak with home service companies about, hey, I was invited to a high school career fair. It's going to last all day. What ideas do you have? So this is where this is where it's really cool to see, from a business point of view, how can I get the attention of the high school sophomore, junior, or even a middle schooler? How can I get their attention walking by? Because I know that it's limited. So we talk about, making the posters into bigger signs. We know that you talk about bringing hand tools or small pieces of equipment, or, if space allows, you can bring in the service truck and you let the students walk through the truck. I think we're starting to see how hands-on can I make my time there so that it's interactive and you can communicate, in a short amount of time, what the trades mean to you. So when you brush your teeth in the morning, let's think about how the water got there. When you're washing your clothes, how is it warm? I think it's, when you scale it back, the message becomes, how can we meet the students where they are? What do I know living at home? How does that connect to the plumber and the electrician and the HVAC technician?
Okay, great. So what I'm hearing is, and correct any of this, right? You act as a resource for businesses, in the sense that you can kind of help them with materials and more so communicate what the benefits are to the next generation.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, very cool. No, I like that a lot because, oftentimes in this industry, these industries, I should say, it's difficult for employers themselves to be able to close that gap, right? Because maybe when they got into it for different reasons. They do have a story to tell, I mean, I'm a big believer that everyone's got a story to tell, but not everyone's a storyteller.
Right.
you know?
Yeah, that's true.
And so I really like that, you kind of have this, this bridge, this best of both worlds that you work toward. That's great. So what kind of, so first off, I've got a lot of things going through my head right now. So first off, is there a way that people can see the material or something like that? Or how can they request the material? Because I got to be honest, I'm interested myself for my business.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have the request form and images of the toolkit online. So it's explorethetrades.org. So you'll be able to navigate to that piece. Great.
All right, let's kind of get high level a little bit, and let's talk about why this is important for business owners to be able to number one, use you as a resource. To number two, why is it important to speak to this next generation? Right? Let's kind of get fundamental here. So let's start with that. Why is it important to speak to the next generation?
That's a great question. And funny enough, I was just reading in Plumber Magazine yesterday. They had just posted an article about the workforce with Gen Z. So the number by 2030, they estimated that the workforce would be made up of 30% of Gen Z. So as Gen Z gets older, the article talked about the different motivations in the workplace. And I think we can use the trades as an example. If Gen Z, if these high school students are coming up and they're really adept at technology and communication and looking for a purpose-driven job, I think, well, this is a great example. I think it's a great way for business owners to communicate, well, this is how we use technology in the home service industry. It's not just your tools anymore. There's so many technology pieces in that tool bag, and the way we communicate with customers, we're doing it over text. We can use AI. How do all of those incorporate it? And then related to purpose driven, the way I look at this is if I were to take Gen Z and how focused they are on the environment and conservation, again, great examples of how these trades can help do that. I think there's just a great way that we can connect the dots to this generation coming in.
Yeah, I agree. And, it's really telling when you say by 2030, 30% of the workforce is going to be Gen Z. I just saw a similar statistic. It was more geared toward today, but it's already like 19 or 20%. I mean, it's not a small number.
No, it's not. No, it's not. And I think that, related to purpose driven, and this is something that I have really learned in this role, is that, coming out of COVID, and I know we don't want to talk about COVID anymore, but it's one of those things where it was really a wake up call to say, we need plumbers and HVAC technicians and electricians to keep us safe and healthy, and they protect our community. And when you think about it like that, that's a big wake up call.
Yeah, and that's why so many were considered essential businesses during
Exactly.
that time. No, and I think you're right. I mean, silver lining, right? That's honestly, that's a big part of it. So let's kind of flip it upside down a little bit and kind of work backwards from a pain point that may exist. One of the things that I often hear. So okay, let's start over. Typically, and this landscape is starting to change, but typically in the skilled trade industries, the blue collar world, there's a generation gap between the owners of these businesses and the generation coming into these businesses. I have seen that gap become a barrier. And what I mean by that is you've heard people say, oh, then this next generation, they don't want to work. They don't value this. They don't value that. I have my own opinions about that, but I'm going to practice my reservation right now. Not going to say anything about it. I want to hear your take on it because you're kind of at the front line of this. You're the bridge. So how do you combat that pain point, and do you see it often?
Oh, that's a good question. And I know that everyone says they don't want to work, and I think if we would go through history, that's probably something that's shared with every new generation. But again, I think it just goes back to these younger adults who are coming into the workforce. What do they want? Like, truly, what do they want? Is it a work-life balance? Fair enough. I think it's on the employer to say, this is how we manage that. Or, we want to be involved in more volunteer activities. No doubt businesses do that. So I think the business is probably already doing and has the benefits that these younger adults, this new workforce is looking for. Again, I think you just have to break it down and say, yep, we do this, and here's how. So if I want to be, again, I'm going to use the environment again. If I think the environment is important, and how can I do that with my job? Well, let's talk about all the technologies we have in place to help homeowners take care of that. So I think it's already happening. I think it just comes down to how do we effectively communicate that?
Yeah, no, I like that answer a lot. And, personally, I don't think that the next generation doesn't want to work. I think that they're looking for work worth doing.
Right.
And I think that, because I mean, I've had a lot of them in my business, come and go and for different reasons. Right. And I can see how the perception would exist, but I also see what we were failing to communicate. Mm-hmm. Right. Why is our work worth doing? Mm-hmm. Okay. Because, from what I've noticed, the previous generations, they had a very particular way of communicating this, right? It was, well, work. Work builds values. You need to work. You're lucky to have a job, and that's not the way of the world now. We need to explain to kids why they should be a plumber instead of a streamer, because they could probably make more money as a streamer starting out. Sometimes, I mean, and I'm just being real, right? And there's the trades we all know by this point are incredibly lucrative. So I don't want anyone to misunderstand what I'm saying out there. I'm saying that we're no longer up against, the plumbing company down the street. We're no longer up against the HVAC company down the block. We're up against everything that exists in the world today. We're up against, how kids can make money on YouTube, how, we can, you can go to Amazon, right? Or, hell, you can work at In-N-Out now and make $22 an hour.
Yeah.
Right. So, we're up against a lot of different things, which means we need to get better at marketing what our purpose is.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think the marketing campaign for the trades has been vastly different than the marketing campaign for college. I mean,
Yes.
it's vastly different. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. And so I'm going to pick on another thing you said here, which I think is really important. And I'm going to give myself a shameless plug in a second. So just be prepared for that. But, but I think that, another thing that we as business owners have got to look at is growth opportunities, right? And this is a value that I've seen coming out of the next generation where they don't want to be left to their own capacities to learn and grow. They want to be poured into. They want support, and they want somebody to come to them and say, not only do I want you to learn leadership abilities, communication abilities, and stuff like that, but I'm going to show you how to do that.
Yeah.
Right. And my shameless plug here is that we just started an academy at Blue is the New White, the first of the year, where we're actually releasing courses on how to develop soft skills in your employees. Right. And I mention this because it's important, whether you hire me to do this or you do it on your own as a business owner, it can't be understated how important it is not only to teach the hard skills, but to teach the soft skills, the ones that are truly transferable, and show that next generation that we as an industry are capable of developing them not only into great tradespeople, but into great people.
Right. Amen.
So,
Amen.
So and that's the angle I think and listen, I'm spewing a lot of opinions out here, so and that's all they are, right? But but it's so important to note. Yeah. And anyway, I went off on a rabbit trail there. I want to ask you. I want to get back to you and explore the trades. So we've talked about kind of what you do in the schools for the students and how to raise that awareness. We've talked about what you do for businesses and how to bridge that gap. What are the ideas or what are the goals for tomorrow for Explore the Trades? Sure. What are you working toward?
Sure. I think a lot of that, I was just having this conversation with some colleagues not that long ago, and we were talking about, okay, we have education over here, we have industry over here, and we know all of the articles and all of the opinions out there about how education needs to change because industry is saying we're getting people into the workforce who aren't ready. So, how do we fix that? And one of the programs we have at Explore the Trades is a partnership we've had with Ferguson. So we're in our third year right now, and we have partnered together to build skill labs in middle school and high schools across the country. So we operate it as a grant program. So middle schools and high schools are eligible to apply. Side note, for applications, if anyone's interested, they're due March 31st, and all of the details about this program are online. And the point of this partnership is, again, how do we get trades education back? And because we know there's so many barriers. There's a barrier for schools and funding. I mean, trades education is not cheap, right? And again, late 90s, early 2000s, we took all of the shop classes out. We want everyone to go to college. So how do we bring it back? And this is a way that we're making our imprint on this movement. Through the 2 full years we've done it, we've been able to get plumbing or HVAC equipment to 14 schools around the U.S. So we're looking to add that to the mix this spring. And I think that, just using our partnership as an example, it's really incumbent on the industry to say, well, how can I make a difference? And I think that to propel Explore the Trades, to propel the movement forward, it's going to come down to partnerships. And it's even one where a local home service company, make contact with your local school and say, I would love to invite your students out to our company for a field trip to learn more. And I think that if industry can take the lead on that, we'll all be much better suited. And personally, I think of my children. I have one in middle school, I have one in elementary. And for the older one in middle school, classroom learning just is not a thing. He wants to move, he wants to learn with his hands. And I just think, oh, I wish we had more tech classes for students to do that. And see, Josh, no, I'm going to go down a rabbit trail with this, but the more you study trades education and the cost and budgets and how schools and states determine that funding, that leads you to the CTE movement. You're looking at career and tech ed funding. And the more I've learned about it, it's so incredibly varied from state to school district. And you're really not, the playing field isn't level is what I'm saying. So kudos to those school districts who are making it something to get behind, and you want more from the schools who aren't. So it's so varied. And when you find a district who is doing that, you wish you could replicate it all across the country. So I just think, to kind of bring it back, I think businesses, whether they think they can or not, it's such an easy thing to do is pick up the phone and call the school, and you can start making a difference in that school with those students, not only with the students, but with the teachers and then parents, because we know that parents, that's a tough crowd, right? and so we need also to convince them that this apprenticeship, this career path is just as valuable as a college degree. So I'm on my soapbox of trades education. That's kind of where we are with this.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. It's, and I've talked about that before on the show and in the book, that parents, 9 times out of 10, they want what's best for their kids, but sometimes it's really hard for them to admit that they don't know what's best, especially if they just don't know what they don't know. Right. And they weren't exposed to the trades, or, it wasn't in the school system when they came through, which we're seeing more and more of now as millennials are getting older, and because it sure wasn't pushed in I didn't know anything about the trades until I was in them at 22 years old.
Right. Right.
And so, that's as you put it, it's definitely a tough crowd. And I think that's really good advice for business owners out there to just pick up the phone, call the school. I know that this may seem like a lot of work right now to some businesses, but it's necessary. And I think that's the mindset shift that has to happen, is that we can no longer rely on this revolving door of technicians and mechanics and people within the skilled trades, because it's not making things any better for tomorrow, right? All ships rise with the tide, as they say. Yep. And so it's up to us as business owners to raise the tide. Right. I mean, that's what we've got to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say, Josh, to that point, that for all the businesses listening, what I would offer is, if you want to look like the hero going into the school, you can call us, you can email us, you can request a set of those posters and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Career Counselor, look what I have, and I can help you talk to your students about the trades. I know that companies have done that with us, and we're happy to do that. If we can make that conversation easier, to be the toolkit that you share, we're happy to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, I'm just going to say it because everyone else is probably thinking it, but this is highly marketable too. I mean, yes. The fact that that a business is involved with a school and using their resources to help better the next generation by way of bettering the skilled trades is a very marketable and lucrative thing for your business.
Absolutely. I mean, you're encouraging the talent pipeline locally, good jobs in the community. I mean, it's a win-win situation.
And then I have one more question on this topic for you. You had said that you get HVAC equipment and stuff like that for the labs, I think you said. And
yes.
Where does that come from?
So that's with our partnership with Ferguson. So,
got it. Okay.
So with schools who, are selected to be a recipient, they receive up to a certain dollar amount of equipment, and they work with Ferguson, and we help outfit their school.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Is there opportunities for other businesses to be involved in that capacity and donate equipment or tools or things like that you guys could use?
Yeah. You know what? That's a very timely question, because we're actually in the process of building out the program even further. So we anticipate early to midsummer, starting to take inquiries and reaching out to other brands and vendors who want to help us expand the program. So
That's amazing.
Keep an eye out for that.
That's awesome. All right, good. Before we wrap it up, what am I not asking?
Oh man. It's I don't know if it's a question, Josh, but it was really at Christmas time. I'll share with a story.
Yeah.
Christmas time, our kids got the Life board game as part of a Christmas gift. And of course, my husband and I are like, oh yeah, we got to play this. We remember this, and we haven't played it forever. And so we got the game out, we were reading the instructions, and as everyone remembers, in the game of life, you have a career path and you have a college path, right? So you can choose your venture. And in the instructions, I took a picture of it because I couldn't believe it. But in the instructions, it says about a career path. You can take a career path, but more than likely you'll earn less than a college path. And I just thought, okay, so not only, it was just a real-time example of how the career path is, that perception that hits you when you're 5 years old, 6 years old, right? And so you think it's in the instructions. Okay, well then I'm going to read that. Well, I'm going to go college in the game because I get paid more.
Oh my gosh.
And then I'm curious, and of course I'm cheating before we even start the game, because I want to see the career options that you can choose. And there is nothing in the trades. There's a vlogger, there's a social media star. There was something to do with film related to social media. So you think, okay, 30% of the careers offered are social media, and there's nothing in the trades. And I thought, oh, come on. It was so disappointing.
Wow, that is so interesting that
yes,
that we've gamified the fact that
we have gamified it. Yes,
it's insane. And I wonder too. Yep. This must have been a newer version of the game.
It was.
It doesn't sound like the ones I used to play. But now I'm curious to go back to because I think I might have an old one laying around somewhere from when I was younger. I know. But now I'm curious to go back and see how the non-college career paths have changed from
right.
Man, you got my gears turning now.
Josh, you and I both know that social media vlogger was not an option when you and I first played it.
No, it certainly was not. Yeah. So no, that's really. I appreciate you sharing that. That's really intriguing, and now something that you've just created another rabbit hole for me. In my personal life.
Right. Oh, I know. Believe me, I saw that and I thought maybe it's time for an explore the trades version of.
There you go.
Life.
We're thinking.
It's on my list. It's on my list.
Awesome. Well, Kate, hey, listen, I really appreciate you spending your valuable time with us and educating our audience, and I appreciate everything that you do for these industries. So thank you for that, and thank you for coming on the show. Before we wrap up, where can people find you? Where can they Explore the Trades? How can they get a hold of you?
Sure. So explorethetrades.org is our website, and related to social media, the handle is @explorethetrades. My contact information is on our website, and would be happy to exchange phone calls, emails. Anyone who has a question, just please reach out.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today, Kate. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. I do too. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Blue is the New White podcast. Be sure to subscribe to get the latest episodes. For more, please follow @Josh Zolin on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. Or visit us at blueisthenewwhite.com, where we create success, not debt, and build blue-collar heroes.